now 6:01, and I'm now calling to order the meeting of the Valley Center-Pauma Unified School District Board of Trustees. And since we have a quorum, we can commence our meeting. We will now recess into closed session and then reconvene at 6 p.m. for our regular meeting.
Test. Test.
I'd like to reconvene this meeting of the Valley Center-Pauma Unified School District Board of Trustees. It's a little after 6 o'clock, and we do have a quorum, and so we will begin with the pledge. Julie, would you lead us, please?
Yes. Place your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And we have nothing to report out of closed session, so we will move to the approval of the agenda. Mr. Superintendent, do we have any additions or corrections or deletions for that?
Yes, Board President, we do. We have two additional agreements. One is a contract or an agreement that we have with Cal State San Marcos with our nursing students. That was an updated contract. And then the second one is an agreement with the San Diego County Office of Education to share data in conjunction with the CLSD grant, which was previously approved by the board.
Okay. Is there a motion that we approve this as amended?
Also move.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move with the vote. Member Benjamin? Aye. Member Heredia?
Aye.
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
And Member Adams votes aye. We now move on to a very happy part of our evening is when we have recognitions and presentations, and we want to recognize Cindy Markison as the classified employee. And Stacy Sanger will introduce in a moment.
It should start.
I'm here tonight because we have this certain individual here who, I have to be careful not to get teary, but in early August, when I was elected to be the principal, I ended up on a campus by myself for a couple of days, and then there was Cindy. And she greeted me with a great big smile and a great big hug, and so much joy came out of this woman that I thought, man, I am in the right place. This is where I belong. Just the feeling, she's a special person. Cindy's dedication and her commitment to the Oakland staff, the VC Prep, Independent Studies, students and staff as well, is to be admired. Cindy's servant heart attitude is demonstrated through the positive relationshiip she builds with students, staff, and families. If she can find a way to help, she will. She has been with Oakland and Valley Center Prep since its beginnings, and she's not afraid to tell you she's been there, done that. And her willingness to share her knowledge and experience, though, has been a tremendous asset for me. She has been my right arm. Our staff says, I am daily reminded of her professionalism and commitment to high quality education, but most importantly, I am inspired by her ability to be quick to forgive and encourage with a kind word for students and staff alike. Cindy has an innate understanding of the needs of the school, the students, and the community in which she has served for over 20 years. I am so blessed and grateful to have been to be able to be under the development and guidance as she has provided to many of us over the years. Another staff said, she's very helpful, knowledgeable to new staff. She's a hard worker. She cares a lot about our students and is committed fully to our school. Another one says, she has been such an asset to Oakland by her hard work and dedication to students, parents, and staff. She's always so welcoming and takes time to listen to everyone that walks through our doors and gives her motherly advice with love when needed. She is truly the heart of our school. Thank you, Cindy, for all you do and for your dedication to Oakland and VC Prep.
before she says anything, I have to say, I was a teacher at Oakland Continuation School for several years before I retired. And Cindy here was the best boss I ever had. That's right. So whenever she got on the phone and said, Mr. Adams, get in here right now, I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. You know, we have the best school. We do. I know, you guys are great, but Oakland is like, I'm sorry, but it is the most special place to be because of all of the people there, the staff, the teachers, the students. It is the most kindest, loving family that there can ever be in anywhere, and we all care about each other. And I think that's what's so successful for our children, because they understand that and they see that, the love that comes from these people. It's amazing, and we all love each other, which is the way it should always be, you know. And they don't feel that they're different. They don't at all. We never have, all of these people never feel that about these children. So that's why they're successful. So I think, and I am blessed to be where I am. So thank you.
And now to present for the certificated Employee of the Month is Ms. Stacy Sanger.
Stacy Sanger truly cares about our students and staff. She's a dedicated teacher and colleague. In working with our independent study program, Stacy is experienced and efficient. She works to ensure that all of our students leave her lessons and weekly appointments with a better understanding of the material as well as a positive attitude. Some of the things her colleagues say: Stacy's a hard worker, knowledgeable, supportive of her colleagues, positive attitude. She cares a lot about our students. Stacy has served Oak Glen High School and VC Prep, our family, with professionalism, efficiency, and commitment. She's always made the time and effort to support our staff, whether it be curricular or our site union representative. Her knowledge and commitment to students has been a valuable asset on both campuses. Thank you for all you do, Stacy. And lastly, Stacy has been an invaluable resource for anyone new to facilitating the independent studies program. She's quick to offer help and lend an ear to hear new ideas and other concerns. I'm not sure how I would have survived the transition over to the program without her. Thank you again, Stacy, for all you do for our students.
To Superintendent McCowan and to Assistant Superintendent Robertson, to all of the Valley Center-Pauma Unified School Board and district personnel that are here, the VC Prep Oakland staff back there, I just want to say thank you for this award. I'm truly honored to receive it. It's a privilege to come to school each day and to truly enjoy being with those people that I work with. And I'd like to give a special thank you to our principal, Alicia, for her tireless efforts in supporting our independent study program and all of its very unique needs. I could not do my job without good leadership from the district level down to the daily level. And to my colleagues in the back, after 28 years of being in the classroom, I can honestly say that I still learn and grow on a regular basis, and that's because I'm continuously surrounded in this district by professionals who encourage me to be the best I can. It's their excellence that they model, that they share, and that drives me to be better. So that's the reason this honor is something that I share with each one of you. So thank you. Teaching is a team effort.
All right, so at this time, our principal, Alicia, is going to, Graf is going to present to us about it's a math curriculum at Oak Glen VC Prep.
Well, hello again. I am Alicia, as I said, and I'm the proud principal of Oak Glen and VC Prep. Like any good English teacher would do, I brought along my math teacher to help me talk about mathematics at both of the sites that I have been the privilege to serve in. So we are going to share a couple of different things, and there it is, waiting for us all. That's our beautiful school. We walk up to that thing every day with excitement. So a couple of things about Oak Glen that are slightly different than the other schools that you've heard presented. And that is that most of our young people that come over are credit deficient. They need more credit. Most of them have not really been successful in school, so it's not really their jam, so to speak. So when they come over, one of the things that I noticed immediately about the staff is that they are trying to reconnect kids to school, period. To school and learning is what these guys do. And it's just incredible how they do that. Personalized approaches, small class, working one-on-one more with kids. Some of our students come with different things in their life that are getting in the way of learning. And mathematics, as you know, and again, as an English teacher, was not my strong suit either. Mm-hmm. So walking into a school where you don't have any success in the first place, walking into math that you never had success in, you sit down and you work one-on-one with Rutherford or the independent study ladies, and you find out that, oh, I can do this. So it's amazing how working with this population of young people can be made so, so positive and powerful for them. Because one of the things we'd like to do is to have them remember that I can do math. That's her motto. I can do math. So we really try to enforce that every day. Jessica, one of the young ladies, as an 11th grader, never been successful in a math class since like 6th grade. And she sits and she's in geometry and she's grinding through it. And she says to me, this is why I like it. I don't feel rushed. I'm not with all the class being pushed, and I can take it at my own pace. So I'm going to have Rebecca share a little bit about some of the course offerings.
So at OG, we offer our applied math class, which is like a business math class, to kind of prepare them for after high school and credit cards and loans and all that fun stuff of being an adult. Our other course offerings are intensive algebra, which is just an algebra course that kind of starts them off at 6th grade standards, but builds them up slowly to the standards they need to be at to meet their algebra goals. The other one we offer is Algebra 1 and Geometry. We also have some supports in place. We have a Title 7 or Title 6 aid. Our past mentor, we also offer our after-school assets program. Our Agile Mind software is a big thing. That's our intensive algebra program. And then we also have the paper tutoring that's offered through the district. So this is our Agile Minds program. This is my baby. I love Agile Minds. It does start them off at a 6th grade standard, but it builds them up to the algebra standard that they need to meet. And it does it slowly. It also builds into it no, it builds up their confidence and their ability to have confidence in themselves and their ability to solve problems, and it works on their mindset so that they can change that mindset of not being able to solve the math problems. So we have a short little video from the Agile Minds.
Welcome to Agile Mind. We are excited to support you and your students with our curriculum, assessment, and professional learning resources. In this short video, you'll learn about the key features and tools that will help you get started. Agile Mind course programs are designed by our expert authors at the Charles A. Dana Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Strong vertical coherence within and between our courses, and our ideas-first approach that develops deep conceptual understanding as a foundation for fluency with mathematics enable you to create rigorous, engaging learning experiences for all of your students. Start by choosing a course from the My Courses tab. Course content is organized into topics, which include student-facing learning resources that can be projected and shared with the class, technology-enhanced practice and assessments, printable PDF and Word documents for most courses, like the student activity sheets in this topic, and comprehensive supports for planning and daily teaching. Select the topic that interests you to start exploring Agile Mind's approach to teaching and learning. As you navigate through pages in a topic, you might notice that each topic helps students see the world around them differently as they use authentic, real-world context to develop understanding of mathematics. You will notice embedded interactive animations and simulations throughout our programs. These animations help students engage with and understand the most important concepts deeply and efficiently. You may notice checks for understanding included in animation panels, and elsewhere in the form of puzzles and question and answer routines. These are strategically embedded to help you and your students assess learning in the moment. A pencil icon in the top right of your screen indicates associated student print resources for online content pages. You and your students have these comprehensive resources available when you need them via desktop, laptop, tablet, and smartphone. Agile Mind is designed to keep educators like you at the center of instruction. To that end, our Advice for Instruction section is designed to help you create engaging classroom learning experiences with Agile Mind every day. Tools include both long-term and daily lesson planning guidance, as well as additional pacing and professional learning resources. Open the Advice for Instruction to review planning supports for each topic. The Prepare instruction provides an overview of the topic and supports weekly planning, and includes links to printable PDF versions of planning resources and topic-level activity sheets. The Deliver instruction supports your daily lesson planning and is available to those who use our programs as their core instructional resource. Notice that the Deliver instruction includes your daily learning objectives, rich questions to engage students at the beginning of class and throughout, lesson activities with page-specific guidance from the authors, and strategies for engaging and supporting diverse learners. Each lesson is complete with further questions and a suggested assignment to support students in consolidating and applying their learning. The Professional Support section has additional resources to support your work. Review scope and sequence documents to see how concepts and standards progress over time. Learn more about the design of our programs through the Getting Started with Agile Mind self-paced resource available for most courses and with our professional essays. Course materials contain additional resources to support teachers and students, such as standard alignments and a searchable index of all of the interactive animations included in a course. We hope this introduction gets you started in your exploration of Agile Mind. Once you begin using the system, you will discover reports and dashboard tools that inform you of students' progress in learning and help you manage instruction more conveniently. As you continue working with our programs, know that we are here to help. Use question mark icons like this one to access our extensive and searchable online help system, or email support@agilemind.com to have our partner services team help you with any questions.
So next, as a first-year principal out at Oak Glen, some of the things that we've been considering about what are some of the next steps for the mathematics curriculum and how we support our students. As we do have a couple of supports in place, but we would like to think about some other kind of larger ideas, and some of them are on the overhead there. working on supporting all of our students to earn the credits they need for graduation and to become confident in math. And that is one of the things that as I walked in and began observing Rebecca and her work, that is so key for her to teach them to have confidence and yes, you can do this math. And for me, again, as a student that was not confident in math, I think that it's such a bonus to hear that every day to hear, yes, you can learn this, you can do this. The other is to kind of move toward the conceptual and real life contextual understandings of mathematics, and that is kind of math ease to, like they were showing the skateboarder and the arc and all of those things. Lots of times our students don't see the connection between real life and like the algebra and the geometry that I'm doing. When am I really going to use it? So talking a little bit more about that. Introducing maybe some higher level courses. We do have students that are attending both of our schools that are pretty capable of moving on to advanced math. So in just discussing with her and the rest of the team there, talking about possibilities. Always the possibilities. I really believe the students will rise to your expectation. The next one is, again, to kind of support the large number of our students that may have never heard of going to college or going to one of the tech schools that are locally in Riverside, Temecula, etc. So try to get a larger number aware of continuing education doesn't mean 4 years. I don't got to go 4 years. I don't got to get straight A's. I don't have to do that. But I can go get a certificate. I can go learn how to do X. So that is one of the bigger picture sort of ideas. Was there? Do I stop for a Q&A or?
You can go all the way through, and then we'll do
Okay.
the Q&A at the end. Sure. You bet.
Okay, so
Doing
we'll talk a
great.
little bit about the independent study program, which is pretty much mimics the elementary school, the TK to 5, and that's a Eureka program that's been adopted by the district. Grades 6 to 8, same thing. The teachers in the lower grade levels use the program that has been adopted, as I said. They also use a couple of other additional supports within the classroom, and that is a ZERN program, which is also an online program, which they find is very helpful. They see that they can get additional tutoring. Again, we also offer that paper, the district-wide tutoring. It isn't as popular with the independent study students, and I believe it's because the once a week they come and they sit down with their teacher and they can actually ask questions and move that way. I think they prefer that. It's an interesting finding of mine. The mathematics curriculum for the high school, again, is going to mimic the high school next door to us. Pretty much offering the same A to G requirements, the same college prep type things. Our courses are pretty much, the kids are stacked up 9, 10, and 11. And there are so many different possibilities as we were talking about, advanced mathematics. But one of the things that we find in some of the intervention in working with our students is that some of the basic skill sets are a little rusty. And we have to find ways to not necessarily kill and drill, or drill and kill, but to make sure that they've got those basics. And that's something also that we're working on at Oak Glen. So some of them, as you know, they haven't been successful, so their basic math is kind of shaky. So that's one thing that we're thinking about. The different programs, as I said here, are for tutoring. There's also additional days that they can come and sit with their teacher and work on their math and get that extra help if necessary. So independent studies, again, slightly different, but not really. So they have a couple of different hopes to achieve in their overall math program. And again, trying to get a sort of friendly independent study program where a parent can take the information and help the student learn that. That's been a challenge for especially the high school level of the kiddos taking the math in the independent study. So been thinking about ways and instructional strategies to where we can make it more friendly so that they can go, okay, I get it, let's do it this way. So the other is to provide strategies in developing some strong background math skills in our TK through high school program. And as I learn more about Eureka Math in the lower grades and Zern as a support piece, it will help me get that understanding and see where the teachers and I can sort of develop a better plan on that. The other is finding more ways to implement support for our kiddos. And again, as I said, math is a tough one, and not being in school for some time is hard to catch up, so to speak. So one of the things we like to do with that as well is to explore maybe more the more command of the basic skills, so that they can move that successful transition into a UC or whatever it is that the independent study students choose to go with. So, as I said, one of our biggest hopes is that the fear of math and the lack of confidence in mathematics can be something that we conquer at both ends, at the independent study program and at the alternative high school. So I hope you enjoyed that a little bit, and Rebecca will be here for questions.
So do we have any questions for Rebecca here about the math program? I'm pretty familiar with it, of course, having worked with Rebecca for several years at Oak Glen. It's a really good program. I know Rebecca does a lot of good things with the kids there, and it's always a challenge at Oak Glen, but that's why we all love it. It's just a small group of kids and everything. We got to know each other really well, and I thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for your good work.
Okay. Right. So we're going to have a presentation of this first?
Yeah, so while the presentation,
Right.
so John should have everybody
Right.
come in, and then she would speak, and then
Right,
the presentation.
right. So, John, I believe you have a presentation about the trustee area maps at this time.
I believe there are also public comments, or?
Do you want to do the presentation
Yeah, my thought
first?
don't we want the demographer
Should
and
we do
also
the presentation first?
so-
Sure.
Well, no, so they can hear the speaker. So is Dan and,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I'm here. Introduce you. We have Mr. Shinoff, our attorney, here to introduce the issue, and our demographers from Cooperative Strategies are on hand as well to review the data once again that we've been going over the last couple of months. So I will hand it over to Mr. Shinoff to introduce the issue.
I'm sorry, John, I'd like to have the public comments now, but I wanted to make sure Dan and.
So that
Mr.
they could
Chisholm
hear
was
them.
here, so
Okay.
they can
Now
hear the comments.
Oh, I
Okay.
see. Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Okay,
Very
so
good.
we do have one request to address on this issue, and that's Amy Admire.
Sorry about the confusion.
It's okay, no problem.
Good evening. I'm Amy Admire. We noticed that it's more of a question really, so maybe they can answer it. That our reservation in Paula doesn't take up a lot of space in the district. So we're concerned on their representation, but it might be a districting,
They're not in our district.
I don't know exactly, but we just noticed that Paula wasn't included as much as we would have liked to see them be.
I don't think they're in our
Or
district.
that they have more area, right, in the district.
And I think Dan can answer that, but I believe that Paula, only a piece of their district is within our boundaries. And we don't get to really choose that. The school boundaries are, I don't want to say given to us, but they were set up years ago. We don't get to incorporate a different school district.
Right, and that's what my question, I guess.
Yeah. No, good question, but yeah, we don't get to, we wouldn't mind moving that line over, but we don't get to.
Yeah,
I think they mostly exist in Bonsall and Fallbrook.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, at this time, I'll introduce Mr. Shinoff to talk about the trustee area boundary adjustment process.
Good evening, Honorable Board and Superintendent. We began this particular item with an excellent question, and the response was accurate, and that is the boundaries of the district are a separate issue from the selection of trustee areas. So you are correct that areas of Palo would be partially in other adjacent districts, not within the Valley Center-Pauma Unified School District. So I thank you for that question. So as you may recall, we began this process in December when Cooperative Strategies shared with you information from the 2020 census. And as you may recall, that census information was provided in a late fashion as a result of COVID, and it had not been certified until September 18, 2021. So Valley Center, along with every other school district and agency throughout the state of California, is currently facing a significant time crunch. School districts even more so, because February 28th is the last date for the board to take action before this issue then would turn over to the hands of the county committee in terms of the process. But you've been ably guided by Cooperative Strategies throughout this process. In January, we returned to you with a couple of different scenarios, continuing to receive the input that is necessary to assess communities of interest and all of the various factors that are taken into consideration under both federal and state law. And so this evening, there will be two scenarios for your consideration, and then you will have a resolution presented to you for your consideration, for which for you to vote upon. I apologize that I'm not personally present this evening, but after 2 years, COVID finally caught up. So my wife convinced me that it would neither be ethical or moral for me to be with you, and I apologize for not doing that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have Josh Chisholm. Was he able to zoom in from Cooperative Strategies?
I'm here. And do we have the presentation, or do I need to share my screen?
No, we have it.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, good evening, board and community, and thank you for having me this evening. My name is Josh Chisholm. I was here in January, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening to take a look at the scenarios that we've provided here. And again, as Dan had mentioned, we are not presenting new scenarios. This is just a second round presenting the same scenarios we're here in January. So next slide, please. Okay, and so the process, there we go, I can see it better now, thank you. The process that we've gone through back in December, we did the evaluation, and just as a refresh, we look at the current trustee areas against the 2020 census data, and look at to ensure that there's an equal population amongst all 5 trustee areas, and we determined that it was out of compliance. If you recall, we were at a 28% variance from the most populated area to the least populated area, and so 10% is the maximum threshold that we're allowed. And so we went through a process to create some scenarios where we simply adjust the boundaries. We're not drawing new maps. We're from a blank canvas or anything. We're simply adjusting the boundaries to rebalance the population. So the areas that are more populated or too populated, you could say, have to be shrunk down, and then the areas that don't have enough population have to grow in order to rebalance. And in Valley Center-Pauma, we had areas 1, 3, 4, and 5 that were too high, and then area 2 that was too low. So we had to redistribute to some extent population to get back into a scenario where the populations were balanced. And so we met in January and took a look at 2 of the scenarios, map scenarios that were back into compliance. And then, as Mr. Shinoff mentioned, we're here tonight to take a look at those scenarios. These scenarios were not revised. They're the same scenarios that we looked at, and we'll look to the board to consider adopting one of the scenarios here tonight. So We do have to the end of February. That's the drop dead date for getting this work done for the county. And then once we come to a resolution, then we'll take this information to the county registrar of voters and get that information to them for the November 2022 election. Next slide. All right, just a reminder here, considerations that we have as we look at making adjustments to trustee areas. Starting at the top left corner there, as I mentioned, we need a nearly equal number of inhabitants in each area. That's that 10% rule, whereas that's our buffer. That's what we get to use as a buffer. We need to make sure that we're still in compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act, the California Voting Rights Act, and that's in regard to protected classes or minorities that are ensure that we're not diluting collective vote, and compact and contiguous as much as possible. The rest of the other 5 checkboxes here are things that aren't mandatory, but that we do take into consideration as much as possible. So areas that are compact and contiguous, respecting communities of interest as much as possible, following man-made and natural geographic features such as roads or highways, canals, respecting incumbency if we can, and then any other local considerations that's provided by the community or the board. Next slide. Okay, so this map simply shows on the left side the exterior boundaries. The question that was posed earlier in regard to Paula was a good question, and these are the exterior boundaries of the district, and so we don't. This is the sandbox that we have to play in, so to speak, and this is a map of that on the left side. And then on the right side is a table showing the demographic composition within these boundaries. And so you can see the different ethnicities on the left side there, and then the middle portion is the total population and the breakdown by ethnicity. And then the right side is the age 18 and older. You can see down at the very bottom in the black row that there's a little over 27,000 people who live in the district. And then if you bounce 2 over, 22,000 of those people, of the 27, are 18 and older. Next slide. All right, this just shows the current trustee areas of the district, and we'll see in the scenarios how they've been adjusted. Next slide. Okay, this was the analysis that we did. And the variance, at least on my screen, is kind of hard to see. Oh, there it is. Total variance in the top right-hand corner there is 28%, as I mentioned, and you can. That's certainly over the 10% rule, and this is what drove us the requirement to make adjustments. Next slide. All right, so here's scenario 1, and as I mentioned, we were going to take a look at how the current trustee areas are drawn, and then the adjustments that were required in order to get back into compliance. And so the dark purple lines on the screen there are the current trustee area boundaries. That's the dark purple. The dark black around the outside, those are those existing district boundaries that we were referring to in the 2 prior slides. And you can see that some of these areas had to be adjusted in order to rebalance the population. One example here is trustee area 5 was the highest populated area based on the current trustee areas, and so in order to shift some of that population into the rest of the district, some of the neighboring trustee areas had to move into the existing boundaries, trustee area 5, and so you can see from the eastern side there where the red has crossed over, moving west into the purple area or trustee area 5, and that's in order to rebalance that population. You can kind of see in the northwest corner of the blue area where it also moves into trustee area 5, and you can see that we used that major road, Valley Center Road there as a boundary, and so those are those considerations as maps are drawn in order to find this happy balance that we're looking for. And so These are the major changes. This is a zoomed in view here of scenario one of the area that had changes. You can see in the upper right-hand corner of this slide here, the fully zoomed out view, but we try to provide a little more granularity and detail for the board and the audience to be able to see where the changes really occurred. Okay. Next slide. Again, this is the data behind the map, and this shows the total variance in the upper right-hand corner there is 7.9%, so below that 10% threshold. And then as we get into the data, you can see that each trustee area has two columns within it. One of them is TP, or total population, and the other one is CVAP, which is citizen voting age population. And for those who haven't been following along through this process over the last couple months, we show in the rows the total, for the first one there, the total population for trustee area 1 is 5,336. And remember that we have to divide the total population amongst 5 areas. So if you took the total population, 27,000 divided by 5, our target is 5,545. And in trustee area 1, we have 5,336. So the next row down shows that we're 3.8% below our target, and that just so happens to be the least populated area, trustee area in the district. And as you work your way across the table, you can see that trustee area 5 is the most populated area at 4.1%. So if you were to add those two together, that gives you your range or your total variance, 7.9%. Below that are the different ethnicities and the composition within each trustee area. So the next row down, the Hispanic Latino population has 34% total population in trustee area 1 and 18.9% citizen voting age population. And that logic works the same from here all the way down through the table. Next slide. Here's scenario 2. This is the same approach. The dark purple lines show the current trustee areas, and you can see that it's a pretty similar change for the trustee area 5, the purple, where the red was moved to the west, or trustee area 3 was moved west in order to balance out that overpopulated trustee area 5, and so on. There are some differences here between scenario 1 and 2, and you can see that on when you compare them as well. But the logic's the same here. Those dark purple lines show the existing areas versus the way that the map would be if scenario 2 were to be adopted. All right, next slide. This here shows up in the upper right-hand corner a variance of 5%. So half of the 10% threshold that we're up against. And in this scenario, you can see that trustee area 1 is actually the most populated area here at 3% variance above our target. And then area 5 is area 4 is the least populated area by 1. Area 5 has just one more person than area 4, and that's 2%. So that's where we get our 5% variance here. Okay, next slide. All right, with that, I'll turn it back over for questions.
Okay, board members, do you have questions you would like to ask our presenters, demographers? And looking over all of these with the demographers and so on and so forth, it's hard to differentiate which one is better because there are very little differences between the two scenarios. And I think we all realize that in 8 years from now, with the 2030 census and all those new houses being built, it's going to look a lot different. And when they did the 2020 census, none of those new homes were built. And so, there's going to even be another huge, I know, in sometime in the near future, one kind of like that over by Valley Center and Coalgrade area there by the new church. So I know that in 8 years it'll change a lot. However, this is what we have to deal with in 2022 because of the 2020 census. And after looking at the two scenarios, I'd like to make a recommendation with the board's, of course you can always throw it away if you don't like it either. but I would like to recommend scenario 1 simply because it has the most Native American representation as opposed to the other scenario. That's my
Yeah, I agree with that. The same thing I noticed, and I mean it's minimal, but it's something. And we are elected in our zone to represent the people within our zone, and so in my mind it makes sense that in whatever zone it is, zone 2, the green area, that if it can represent the most Native American people, because pretty much all the tribes are in that zone.
Except San Pasqual.
Oh, there you go. San Pasqual's in red. But yeah, no, that makes sense that they'd be the most well represented.
Is there any thought to the variance being lower in scenario 2 though? And that being something for us to keep in mind and consider it, keep in mind in considering the fact that it's trustee area 1, or is it 5?
You mean for the new homes?
That's got all the new homes coming in?
That's 5.
Right?
That's 5?
And
that's fine.
I'm just wondering if that is something that we want to be mindful of. And I agree completely with your point about making sure that our populations are represented. I think that holds true for our Hispanic population and, you know, the American Indian, all of the, you know, subgroup populations without a doubt. The percentage difference is pretty minimal, 26.5 versus 26.2. Just wondering if the fact that the way you see the spread of the variance across in scenario 2, does that allow for the growth that's coming more so? I throw that out for consideration to the group.
Yeah, I looked at that too, and I did consider that. However, I think the spirit of the law is that at least one district should have the largest minority representation. So if when you include Latino and Native American, that's why I still thought that the second scenario 1 was the best overall approach. Again, I know it'll change a lot in 2030, but you know, while that's true, there's a few less in that one because of that growth, but at the same time, there's kind of not much we can do about it at the present. Any other discussion? So would you like to make that in a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve scenario 1.
Okay, there's a motion to approve scenario 1 for our trustee area map. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second, and is there any further discussion?
I'm fine with, I
Okay.
think they're both very close, so.
Yeah, they are very close. Okay, very good. So seeing no further discussion, I will now call for the vote on this for scenario 1. Member Benjamin?
Aye.
Member Heredia?
Aye?
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
And Member Adams votes aye. It's done. Okay. Set this stuff on my desk here. Okay, and next we move on to a request to address the board. We have 6 requests here, so I am required to read the following Brown Act language. Members of the public are encouraged to attend board meetings and to address the board concerning any items on the agenda or within the board's jurisdiction. In order to conduct district business in an orderly and efficient manner, the board requires the public presentations to the board comply with Board Bylaw 9323, which includes the following. Members of the public wishing to address the board must complete a request to address the board paper here prior to meeting it and the meeting and give it to the board secretary. The board president will recognize each person who has a request to address the board at the proper time and invite them to speak from the podium. Speakers must announce their name prior to addressing the board. All comments are limited to a total of 3 minutes per person or 20 minutes per item. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the Board of Trustees and staff's ability to respond to comments and items that are not on the agenda. The board may not legally take action on any item not specifically listed on the agenda, and if there are any concerns regarding specific individuals, it is preferred that the speaker refrains from naming them publicly to respect their privacy. Please note that once the board closes the public input time on an agenda item, Only the board and staff are involved in subsequent discussions. So we have 6 here, and then there's one later who wishes to address us on the LCAP.
President Adams?
Yes.
Nancy's informed me that there was 2 other requests to address the board slips taken out that weren't turned in. I just want to make sure there wasn't any confusion and someone's holding on to one that they would like to be a speaker, because I don't want to leave anyone out. So is there anyone with a form that needs to turn it in still? Okay.
Does she have?
No, they weren't turned in.
Oh, they weren't.
So I just wanted to make sure we didn't
All
miss
right.
anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our first speaker is Melissa Elder.
Good evening, everyone. Board of Trustees, Superintendent. My name is Melissa Elder. I work at the Rincon Indian Education Center. And I'm asking all of you this evening to please hear my words and the words of my colleagues well, because we're not here every month because we have nothing better to do. We are here because we feel so passionately about the urgency of our youth getting an adequate education, the education they deserve. When a parent is asked to take their child out of school for home study because they are a victim of bullying, they're not getting the education they deserve, and the district gets to avoid dealing with the bullying situation and the subsequent increased disciplinary statistics that accompany that. We are here because we want to help the district meet their goal, which is to support a broad-based curriculum that promotes achievement for all. So if we're not here to help keep you accountable, who is? The 3 items I wanted to comment on tonight are the cultural humility training, indigenizing the parent communications, and especially the surveys, and the need for rebuilding relationships with Native families. So first, reiterating that that needs to be a plan in place to make cultural humility training a required professional development for all teachers, staff, and the board. And this is so important because any of you cannot do your jobs if you're not understanding how the problems facing the community are impacting the data that the school is receiving, and you're able to better understand that data and how to make a plan in place to improve those numbers. So while you're in this training of cultural humility, which we were told might be happening next month, please keep that in mind, that it is so important for our families. Second, as you may have heard many times from us, out of about 500 families, only a dozen or so respond to surveys, and most of them are employees, regardless of the various methods that are being used to solicit input. This is not the family's fault that they are so disenfranchised from the school system when the only surveys they get include words and phrases like intervention strategies, enrichment programs. These words do not speak to everyday people that are not educators, and it is not culturally relevant. A saying is, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So you are planning on submitting another survey with your LCAP, and it would be appalling if you were to continue to ignore all the feedback you receive yet again for a 4th time and send an irrelevant survey. And it's not only embarrassing, but if you continue to do the same thing, it will show that you have no interest in actually hearing from the families because you know you're not doing well by them and have no interest in trying to mend that relationship or help their youth. If this is not the case, I hope you really make a concerted effort to mend those relationships, connecting with the community members in the community and making a plan to earn the trust of families and make good with the words you share with them. So accountability for any failure of the district to mend these relationships with family and the continued failure to meet the youth's needs rests ultimately with the board as the basic embodiment of representative government. So thank you for your time, and the sooner we can thank you for achieving the district goals to meet the educational needs of our students, the happier we will all be. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Amy Admire.
Good evening, board and superintendent. Natong Amy Admire Yakam Malashnain Novempuish. While our hearts are filled with joy to see our young people, we are so absolutely disappointed that it has taken you, the board, and you, the superintendent, 7 months to confirm our access. In the last few days, our hearts have been filled with joy on our children's faces at having their mentors back on campus. Their faces glow when they hear their language, and they are able to relax and feel safe. We heard so many of the students ask, "Will you be back tomorrow?" I'd like to see the paradigm shift from one of patronizing and paternalism to one of mutual respect, where the words of the district match their actions, We would like the district to stop treating our communities as if they know what's best for us, the way the U.S. government said they knew what was best for us when they put us on reservations. We have been promised access to an equitable education which will elevate our ability to be a self-determining people. An example of this paternalistic relationship is the district showing up to our spaces with prepared budgets and then asking for our input on recommendations they do not intend to consider or apply. In a September 2020 study, the Society for Research in Child Development found that despite the fact that the U.S. government has a trust responsibility to provide for the education, health, and safety of Native children, resources and support for Native children are currently inappropriate, inefficient, or limited by the bureaucracy so that they are ineffective even in the absence of the current crisis. While VCPUSD is currently adding to this very real problem for Native students, we offer that you accept the challenge of being a vehicle to dismantle and unpack the bureaucracy which fuels the inequities our children are facing. When we bring an injustice to your door, such as what our students feel are inequitable detentions and searches, and we ask you to share the data with us, just share it with us. If the data does not show inequities, we can tell our young people they are not being targeted. If the data reveals inequities, we ask that you develop a plan to mitigate the inequity, which would improve the school climate for everyone, not just say we are working on it. We want to see plans and timelines. So in response to the educational forum that we feel is oppressive and wasn't necessary, it was kicked back to us with what I feel like were very benign and non-important items. And so the assistant superintendent asked me what my thoughts were on her kickback. And I said, my thoughts are that the district is not using our time well and is stalling the delivery of critical resources to our community youth intentionally. We've told you of the devastating impacts the pandemic has had on our community: death of young people, substance addiction in 8th graders, alcohol abuse, domestic violence, lateral violence, gun violence, students not re-engaging in school. And I'm, again, appalled that this is your method of collaboration and partnership. The behavior by yourself and the district shows a clear neglect of our community and sheds more light on the fact that the education of our students is not a priority for this district. If it were, you would have welcomed our programming back on campus immediately. Instead of using the assistant superintendent to micromanage education centers and school principals, we feel the district's efforts would be better spent engaging the 500+ Native families who do not participate, making an appointment with Linda Locklear in one of our higher education departments to indigenize a survey for our families, and building a report identifying why suspension rates doubled in 2019 and whether the 30+ Native students suspended from that middle school are still engaged in school and if they require resources, and creating actions to improve the academic education of its Native population. It is also a disingenuous practice to use our Title VI Parent Advisory Committee to check a box for meaningfully collaborating in the design and development of the Title IV, which is being presented tonight, and the 2021 federal LCAP addendum. I don't believe those were brought to our attention, and we find that this is a practice in other documents as well. And again, Ms. Locklear brought up the fact that 7 to 16 people is not enough to say you collaborated with us. And so I feel that these documents really need to be reconsidered until that collaboration and meaningfully collecting our input is obtained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Esmeralda Salcedo. No? What's that?
Hello, thank you, Esmeralda. I'm Tamara Strohauer. I'm a professor of social work at San Diego State University and the Serve Indigenous Social Workers for Change project coordinator for Southern California, as well as one of the co-founders of the Warrior Spirit family, which is dedicated to bringing together ACE of science with historical trauma, indigenous wisdom, and healing our communities. As part of my work with these beautiful youth and these beautiful people whose land we have come to, whose ancestors have walked this land for thousands of years, I was humbled to bring Miss Amy Admire onto a panel of the scholars who put together the study From Boarding Schools to Suspension Boards, the data in which study, this school district has one of the highest rates of suspensions and expulsions of Native youth. We also had the youth there with us that day. We had Rincon youth storytellers with us, children, youth who I adore, who are profound human beings. And I asked them to give the youth the microphone. Every single youth had a story of themselves or their relatives being searched, of being suspended for braiding their hair on a hot day because it would assume they were about to fight, of a girl asking when her backpack was to be searched, pulled over in the hallway, please don't touch my ribbon skirt, that's my medicine. And the assumption that that skirt held the drugs that she was going to sell, the skirt being shaken and thrown on the ground. A young man who had the same story of please don't touch my gourd, that's my medicine. Birdsong practice after school. His gourd was grabbed, thrown on the ground. This is a desecration of the humanity of youth who are sustaining a culture that has sustained their people for thousands of years. In 2021, the #1 cause of death was fentanyl. This conference happened in November of 2019. None of us had any idea what was coming for us, which was this COVID pandemic months later, where these youth went inside, where they lived under incarceratory terms of being locked down, being told to socially isolate, where their relatives began to die, not only from the virus, but from the fentanyl, from the counterfeit opioids that are plaguing our nation and our children. There is not one child, one Native child who attends your school whose family has not been touched by a fentanyl overdose, and whose family, the funerals continue and continue. And the funds that you have that have come to you because of the Native population of youth that you have got to go to recovery for the children, have got to go to youth who were sent home with devices that didn't work on their reservations where there was no Wi-Fi, who were told maybe you can come to the parking lot of the school to access your schoolwork, whose brothers, sisters, cousins, parents were dying weekly. I have the statistics that have happened over 2021. Every 8.57 minutes, there's a fatality from fentanyl, and it's linked to 64% of overdoses. I want you to understand from an academic perspective that your children are in pain, that these drugs numb that pain, that the blues going around that look like that the Xanax, that the Percocet, the things that are told are prescriptions are filled with fentanyl.
Ma'am, can you please summarize?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Your number, I don't have it. What's your name? Oh, Kathy Michaels? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just very passionate about this. In May of 2020.
We're going to give you a full 3 more minutes.
Okay. In May of 2020, I knew about 4 deaths on the reservations of children dying from fake oxy that is made with fentanyl. The Valley Center newspaper made it very much sound like a res issue, said that 2 youth had overdosed. That same week, a young man on Verona Reservation passed away. That same week, my daughter's best friend, a young man who I've loved since they were in elementary school, died. And I knew it was everywhere. I met with Summer Steffen, our district attorney, and this is one of the most passionate things that she is working on right now. In 2019, there were 158 fentanyl overdoses. In 2020, there were 462, and the expectation was well over 800 by December. Every child in your school is at risk, but the Native children are suffering the most because it is all over in the relatives who are passing. The devastation that they have experienced, taking away of singing, of gatherings, of being with their elders because it's not safe to be around your grandma because you could give her COVID, of knowing that your very breath could be life-threatening to the people who are the foundation of your soul and your spirit, to not be able to sing your songs, to not be able to do the dances that have maintained your people for thousands of years. And to come back into a space where these children told us at San Diego State University they feel safer in detention than in the classroom because that is where their relatives are. They would rather be in detention than in class because they're in so much pain in your schools. And to come back into these spaces after all the time of attempting virtual learning in a place where you don't have Wi-Fi access, where everyone around you is in pain, where you can't be with the people who love you the most, where hugging is a lethal weapon, where hugging is forbidden. To come back into these spaces and not have Miss Admire, to not have the Rincon Education Center here, I can't imagine the fear that was in these youth. And they're giving up. Our kids are giving up. Our kids are dying. And we must put the funds towards recovery. We must rearrange everything we think. When we talk about, cultural competence was a word for too long. We can't be competent in another person's culture. We have to listen. If a youth is telling us something, we don't assume they're lying. We don't assume their lunch money is because they already sold the drugs. We assume that they're trying to learn, that they want a better life. And you all, every one of you, have the power to ensure that. Thank you for your time.
Sorry about that.
A little more subtle tone.
Sorry, I don't know what that was. But. Okay, our next speaker is Robert Wallace. I don't know.
Hey, you guys. My name is Robert Wallace. I'm from the Verona Band of Mission Indians. And, I kind of want to spin up at Tamara, my sister. We know all too well the things that are killing our people. And education could be a thing that guides them in the correct way. I am no stranger because I did work and took a questionnaire based on Dr. Folletti's work, all the way across the United States, all the way across, based on the ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. What I found out is stuff that holds them back, they can see it, and it leads to other things. I am of the warrior spirit. I am. I'm a part of that too. I'm a part of professionals that want to see change. I cannot say where they're from, but I call them my brothers and sisters. This right here is history in the making. It really is. Because you guys have the opportunity to change things that's going to happen to hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of people down the line. If we take this right here and we take a snapshot of what's going on, and then in 15 years we come back and look and we see the kids from these experiences, we're going to see a lot of messed up stuff. I like history, and this really is history in the making. I wouldn't want to be on the back end of bad history. And mark my words, you guys, this is being documented. This is California Indian history. What you guys are doing, what decisions you're making, you guys are going to have to accept in the future. And it's getting written. And I'm telling you, it is getting written by other professionals. Even me, I have my notes. It's going to go in my museum someday. Being candid, trying to say the best thing I can. I know you guys have a tough job. I really do. But I know communication needs to extend out more. By the way, hello, Superintendent Ron and board. All these things, I know your work is soul-searching work. It really is, and it's tough. As history, I can lay out one little scenario for you as I got 30 seconds left. I was a part of a group who got a hold of a video shortly after this lady, Candace Reed, from North High School in Riverside, was doing her little mock Indian dance. Sure you guys saw that. And that's because there was no sensitivity training. And in order to find out your people that you're working with, you have to understand them. So please, sir, what we say, talk to these guys, utilize her, utilize all these people to get a better understanding, create more communication, and things will just work out great, you guys. But again, it's your guys' choice to prolong this, and it's your guys' choice how this history is going to be written about each one of those names right there in front of you. So much love, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And one more speaker we have is Mr. Yusuf Miller.
Miyu, that's hello, it's a greeting in the indigenous language. Happy Black History Month. My name is Yusuf Miller from the North County Equity and Justice Coalition and the North County NAACP. And I want to talk to you today about a marriage, a relationship between African American and indigenous peoples. And I'll talk about that in the name of Nathan Harrison. You may all know Nathaniel Harrison. There's a road named after him heading up to the Palomar Mountain, and he is a figure in this community, in this valley. Why am I bringing up Harrison, discussing Harrison at this time? For me, he symbolizes a relationship of love and respect to the indigenous population in this area. He lived on indigenous lands after he was freed from enslavement. He was baptized by a Rincon chief, Juan Sotelo. He became fluent in the native languages, which I just spoke to you in a greeting, which you call Luiseno, but what we call Pioncowicho, and he married into the indigenous family. My support for our indigenous brothers and sisters here is not just the right thing to do, it's not just my honor, it is my heritage in this valley. And I will stand by them because they are a marriage into my family, and we are family. So you better treat my family right. How? By listening to our indigenous brothers and sisters and what they require from you. The indigenous children need support from people who are from their community, who look like them, who speak like them, and who know their unique needs that none of us, not even myself, can understand on its real, intense, heartfelt level. Please listen to the people. We come here every time, and we want movement forward. History is in the making. History is now, and we will be there to witness, and witness either for or against you as time goes on. All of these people here are people who are constantly in pursuit of justice for these children. These children are dying. These children have depression, and these depressions are eating our children alive. Hello, President and Board. We need compassion for our children. We need understanding for these tribes, and without that, we cannot move forward. And the only thing that is going to grow is tension between us, because we cannot let the most valuable resource of our peoples to go to waste, which is our children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we're going to move on to our consent agenda as listed here, and I have one thing to add to the personnel listing as presented in item I, which is to mention that Dr. Mesa Batar, who is going to be the new Director of Special Projects, and Mr. Jameson Reinick is going to be the new principal at Lilac School. Congratulations. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This month, I was tasked with reviewing the POs. I found everything to my satisfaction, and I move that we approve the consent agenda with the noted changes and the updated personnel listing.
Okay, thank you. There is a motion, and is there a second?
Also move.
Thank you, sir. And we'll now then, any more further discussion on it? Okay, seeing none, let's go to the vote here. Member Benjamin?
Aye.
Member Heredia?
Aye.
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
And Member Adams votes aye. And now we have the superintendent's report. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you much. President Adams. So we're going to start out here with a couple joyful pictures of our students and their work at school. So up here we have Mrs. Yarish as Migrant Ed STEM class, and you can see the joyful faces on these kids. I just happened to be around one of the elementary schools today, and I don't know if there's anything better than having a little young one come up to you and they give you a big old smile and they're missing their 2 front teeth, and they just got this joy of being at school, and you can see that on these children here. Next slide, what is STEM? It's our science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And it's a way of doing things that's a combination, so that's not necessarily standing alone. And you can see in the different pictures, they're doing some work with some magnetics and some building blocks and different things. And really that anesthetic where you're using your hands while you're doing the work is one piece of the STEM that really gets it to where things sink in and students begin to learn as they're physically manipulating things. Our next slide. So there's the students learning and exploring. You can see the magnets there and learning different things of science and engineering, and then at the same time getting a chance to do hands-on stuff. And the last slide that I think is most important about STEM is not only during STEM are we learning science and math and the acronyms that are there, they're also verbally communicating about what they're learning. And I think that's one of the big changes that we see, and one of the things that's necessary is for students to be able to engage in communication and engage in conversation about what they're learning, and how much more that is enjoyable that we find with our students, but also it's something that they learn that it's easy for them to pick up and not forget because they've engaged with it and actually manipulated it, handed it, and then kind of communicated back out what they've learned. So those are our STEM class pictures for this week, or this month. Those were from the primary school. Once again, that was Mrs. Yarish's class, and just great to see the happy smiles on our faces up there and the activities that they're doing. So our next slide, and I'm hoping that sooner or later this is not going to be a portion of the superintendent's report, but we're going to go over our COVID data. You can see there that we still keep the same slide there that we've started this with 2 years ago, and that's our commitment as a district for student and staff safety, support for the social and emotional health, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and then creating effective, equitable learning systems. A new slide that I'll bring out today for the first time, this is an attendance slide that we have that I was able to have pulled up. This is our January attendance, and if you look there, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but in about January 12th, January 14th, we hit almost 450 absent students per day due to COVID-related illnesses. Now, a lot of this had to do with the way that we were having to quarantine students. The good news I'd like to point out here is you can see how quickly that graph has dropped back down, and right now we are sneaking in between the 2 and 4%, kind of in the high 3s. I wanted to give that to show you for 2 reasons. One, the spike that we hit, what we're seeing happening live right now as far as our students returning. But the next slide, I wanted to give you the comparison. This was pre-COVID. And you can see we really were averaging about 3%, 3.5% absentee rate. And you know, this is drastically different than the other one, but the neat part to notice, if you look at the very end, we are in the same spot today as we normally would have been in February of 2019. So the return of our students to the classrooms and the return to campuses is getting bigger and bigger. You know, at one point there you can see it at almost 14% absentee rate is astonishing. And so we're glad to see that number come back. One of the concerns we do have there, and we are working with the governor and working with the budget as it comes out, is originally they were thinking that they would get rid of the month of January altogether because some school districts were hit with 40% absenteeism. And when you look at the funding mechanism, if you count January in there, it's going to really hurt districts. And right now, with the budget, there is no compensation being made towards the absences this year due to COVID as compared to the last year and a half. One of the biggest concerns about that is we have to keep these students home. We don't get a choice, not the ones with COVID only, but also with the contact tracing and the isolation that we have to do. And so we're hoping that we can get some movement with the governor to help us with this rate. But the good news, and the thing I wanted to make the biggest point to, we right now are averaging back down at the absence rate that we normally would be at. This next one is another exciting one here. This is our dashboard for our school district. And on January 13th, our last board meeting, we had 111 students out and teachers specifically because they had COVID. Now, we had probably another 100 or two out because of contact tracing, but these specifically had COVID. Today, as we report this number, the report up there says 33. Today, we took 3 more off than we put on, so we're at 30 starting tomorrow morning. So to only have 30 students and staff, and it's roughly 8 and 25, out right now is really seeing the trend. The other thing that I would point out, if you take those 30 students and add those to the ones that are absent today, we'd actually be right in line with what is our normal attendance rate for this time of year. So good news is some things are starting to return to normal. Give you an update on the matrix that we look at with the county. Next slide. And you can see down here, this is for the week of January 23rd to the 29th. We dropped almost 100 cases per day per 100,000. And we dropped almost, it's pretty close to 8% as far as the percent of testing positivity. So the numbers in the county are going down. Remember, these numbers are a week and a half old. The next numbers that were presented yesterday, as we look here, these numbers actually go from 131 to 26. Sorry, I got my month wrong there when I looked at it. This is how many cases per week per 100,000, and you can see it's down at 525, down from 1,007. And if you look up at the, when we first started doing this one, or the last date, at one point there we had 2,500. So that is really screaming down. And the biggest thing is you look at the testing positivity rate, it's down to 14% for this last week. So as that percentage continues to go down, hopefully we'll see our county move up into the orange area and then up into the yellow, and hopefully we'll see an end to this crisis that I think has just been devastating to our children. Next slide. I always like to show this one when it's going down. It's a lot better to show. Last month when I showed it, we were on that steep incline where we were registering 1,700 and 1,400 cases a day. And now you can see at the bottom graph that was updated on 2/6, or February 9th. One of those days we only had 1,300 cases reported in one day, which is amazing. And you can see our numbers starting to drop. And hopefully when I come back next month, we'll see that drop even further, maybe into the single digits, if not lower. So the one thing I wanted to hit on is masks. There's a lot of confusion out there with the new mask mandates and how it's going to shift and what's going to shift and what's not going to shift. The change with masks is for February 15th. We're hearing several different things, and whether or not it'll apply through K through 12 is one of the things that is being negotiated right now. And so just to kind of throw it out to our community, we actually have a seat at the table with CDPH and the county health department to talk directly to the epidemiologists. And one of the things that I will bring forward, and we will as a district, is the social and emotional well-being of our children, which has suffered from the school closures. It's suffered from being held out because you were a close contact to somebody, but you never got sick. And when you look at all those things, they have really done something to our children and the behaviors and everything. We see it, and we need to get to a point where we can go without masks, be able to see facial expressions, and be able to have a normal relationship with each other. And so we will be continuing that and working towards what the result will be. The word that we have is after the meetings that several different groups are having are concluded, next Monday, Governor Newsom will come out with a clear, defined K-12 mask ruling, so to speak. The 15th, I'm sorry. No, let me go back. The 15th is when everything changes. The governor has been said that he'll come out on Monday with clear direction on masks for K-12. So we just will keep you posted, and I know there's a lot of angst out there, but we'll get through this one as we have so many other things with COVID. And with that, President Adams, unless there's any questions from the board?
I think you made it
Thank
pretty
you.
clear. We look forward to some changes real soon.
Yes.
On our campuses. Sorry. And we look forward to some changes on our campuses real soon, and hopefully for the better. So let's wait till next week. Okay, We have a board reading of the first, item B, the board will conduct a first reading of the following revised board policy BP 6170.1. These new revised board policies and administrative regulations will be brought before the board for a second reading at the March 10, 2022 meeting, at which time the board is asked to consider them for approval. Item A, the revised board policy 6170.1, instruction of transitional kindergarten. The TK policy is updated to reflect the new law, AB 130, which gradually revised the time span for mandatory transitional kindergarten admittance such that by the 2025-26 school year, children who turn 4 by September 1 will be eligible for a TK in addition to other changes. I hope I got that straight. Okay, now we have our presentation, item 7, on the annual audit report. So, Mr. Peterson?
Yes, thank you. As you know, every year the school district is required by Ed Code to have an audit of its books, but also of our compliance and various things related to the education code. And so this is the meeting in which we are presenting to you publicly the results of the audit, the actual audit report. You each have a copy of it. And we have Lily Navoa with us from Christy White Associates, and she oversaw the audit of the school district. So she has just a few comments that will help provide some context and structure to how you look at the audit as you read it.
Great, thank you. My name is Lily Navoa. I'll assume that you guys can hear me okay unless I hear otherwise.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I'm a CPA with Christy White Associates, and tonight I'll be presenting the audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. I expect my presentation to take about 5 minutes. I'll go over some background information on the audit process before we're reviewing our audit reports with you. I don't plan to spend any time reviewing the financial statements. We didn't post any audit adjustments, so the numbers that you see were previously approved on your unaudited actuals. So with that, I'll get started. As a school district, you're required to receive an annual audit, and that's stated by the California State Controller's Office. And if you have that audit packet in front of you, it actually includes 4 different audit reports or opinion letters. I'll go into each one in more detail, but to summarize, we first have an independent audit report over the financial statements. We've also provided a report on internal controls, which is required for all governmental entities, a report on federal compliance and applicable internal controls, which is required if you receive and expend more than $750,000 of federal funding. And lastly, we've issued a report on state compliance and those applicable internal controls. We conduct our audit in 2 main phases. The first is what we call the interim audit, and this typically occurs in the spring. During this time, we're focused on internal control and compliance testing. When we look at internal controls, we're testing the design and effectiveness of controls that would prevent, detect, and correct misstatements, whether due to error or fraud. And we primarily are looking at the processes over receipts, disbursements, and payroll. During this time, we also focus on state and federal compliance. All the state compliance is outlined and predetermined by the state audit guide. As you can imagine, last year there was a heavy focus on distance learning testing. And we also complete our federal compliance testing at this time, which is predetermined by the Office of Management and Budget's compliance supplement. The second phase of our audit is what we call the year-end audit. This occurs after the board has approved the unaudited actuals. And during this time, we're testing all of the account balances. So we confirm your cash, we calculate your revenue, confirm your accounts payable, and so forth. Next slide, please. Throughout the audit, the district and auditors have different responsibilities. So the district is responsible for designing and maintaining effective internal controls, those same internal controls that I talked about on the last slide. They're also responsible for preparing and taking ownership of the financial statements and for preparing and managing their own budget. As an auditor, my responsibility is to provide an opinion. I'm looking to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. And I also am responsible for conducting the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States and standards that are applicable to governmental entities. So without further ado, we'll go into our audit reports. If you have the report in front of you, I think page 77 provides a really nice summary. And to who's clicking the slides through, this slide is going to have 4 different pop-ups, which you're welcome to press enter on now, just so you don't have to worry about it. So our first audit report can be found on page 1, and that's a report on financial statements. We issued an unmodified opinion. Although that sounds a little lackluster, that's the best opinion that you can receive. The second report is on page 71. That's our report over internal controls. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified or non-compliance that would be material to the financial statements. The third report over federal compliance can be found on page 73. This year we tested ESSER, Title I Part A, and CRF programs. Again, an unmodified opinion, the best you can receive. Our fourth and final report can be found on page 75 over state compliance. Again, another unmodified opinion with no material weaknesses. We did identify we disclosed one audit finding, which we've classified as a significant deficiency. I'll go over that audit finding in more detail in a few more slides. Next slide, please. There's one item that I wanted to highlight, and this is in regards to note 14 on the financial statements. We restated the beginning balance of net position and the beginning fund balance for the student activity fund. This was due to the implementation of GASB number 84 over fiduciary activities. In short, this adjusting journal entry brought your ASB activities onto your books. Next slide, please. And so the audit finding that I mentioned is over instructional materials. The district is required to provide a 10-day notice of its public hearing in regards to sufficiency of textbooks and instructional materials. We noticed that the notice was posted 7 days in advance. There's no fiscal penalty or question costs in relation to the state compliance finding, and the district has prepared a corrective action plan to prevent this from happening in the future. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions, board members? It looks pretty thorough. I was pretty impressed with our, thank you for Mr. Peterson and your entire department for such a thorough job. It's really tough to do all of that, and thank you for the good work there.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Director of Finance, Michael Aviles, and our financial analyst, Diane Faber, and Julie Payton, and everyone in the business office for their tireless work on the audit. And I'd like to thank Lily for taking the time to present tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we have the 8th Educational Services Division, A, the mid-year update of the Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP presentation, and we have one speaker before the presentation, Antonia Isa Leher. I hope I said that correctly. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent McGowan. Just met with you, board members, and district personnel. I, like everyone else who spoke before me, come to you with deep respect for the hard work that you do, and also an extreme sense of urgency. Our profession is one of a moral trust. I have spent 40 years in this profession as working at a school district, site administrator, and also as a professor. And my doctorate is in urban leadership, so I've spent a lot of time working with marginalized populations, but none as impacted as our Native brethren. I am awed at the suffering that they have had. And how lucky you are to be able to serve this community, how lucky you are here in Valley Center. So we think of ourselves morally, professionally, ethically, and legally responsible for the community that we serve. And so I looked at the LCAP with just the eye of a researcher, the eye, and always looking with a lens of equity. And because we have to do better. In our profession, we're like quarterbacks. We're only as good as our last pass. And we must be about continuous improvement. And when students aren't learning, it falls on the adults. When parents aren't coming, it falls on the adults. When there's problems at schools, it falls on the adults. We shoulder the responsibility entirely for the progress in our districts. I want to thank Superintendent McGowan for meeting with us, because we're going to meet with you some more. I'm looking very forward to meeting with you again. So I have a few wonderings tonight about the LCAP and looking at just some questions to sort of think about for everyone, okay? And the first one is, what evidence-based best practices are you training all teachers in best first teaching that accelerate, remediate, and help your most marginalized students? What does that look like for all teachers? Because in every district I've ever worked with, all teachers need lots of ongoing training to be excellent. And after 40 years, I am still adding skills. My second wondering is why the ed centers aren't written into the LCAP. It's a curious thing to me, because it seems like there should be verbiage that says something like, we work with the Indian Education Centers in the following ways, as they improve reading, work with students, improve. It seems like that should be in. So I wonder what the plan is there. Another wondering I have is about how you will get community input. Because I know, working in marginalized communities, that I held things on Sundays, I went to people's houses. If I want the community involved and they don't come to me, I need to go to them and find out why. And then I need to make my school so welcoming and my place so welcoming that people want to come. That's on me. My next wondering is also, what is the system of continuous improvement in this district? How are you always in education, right? We learn something, we act on it, we assess it, we adjust, we assess it again. We are always getting better. And we have experts in the room to help us with our students who are so suffering. So it seems like there are experts here, but there are deep experts here that we need to look at. The research is pretty definitive. I'm a researcher for a long time. We know what it takes for students to learn, and we know that there are 3 components that must be in place in school systems. Children need to feel safe, known, and loved. Those 3 things, it's the only way that students will learn if those 3 components are in place. So I'm wondering what that will look like moving forward, and I think there are people here who can help us. We must do better. This is the next generation. It is not on the victim to fix themselves. It is on us to do better to help others. So I just thank you very much for your commitment to education. I thank these people so much for the work that they're doing. And I'm hoping that you will just think about my wonderings when you look at the LCAP.
Thank you very much. Okay, so at this time, thank you very much. We have a presentation on the LCAP, I believe.
Thank you, President Adams, members of the board. For those in the public who might not know me, my name is Derek Rao. I'm the Chief Technology Officer in the district, and I'm here to present a little presentation on a little mid-cap review of the LCAP and where we stand on progress towards our goals on behalf of the Educational Services Department, in lieu of Dr. Mel Robinson, who is loving her time as a Lola right now. So I'm not quite as effective as a communicator as she is, but I will do my best. So we'll start with just an overview of our district. So up here, I know these figures might be a little small for you to read. I'll try to highlight some. Our learning community consists of 3,865 students spread across our 8 schools, and we have about 202 instructional staff to support them. Demographically, looking at subgroup enrollment, English learners, we are constituted by about 23% ELs, low income. Oh, I lost it.
It's up at the top.
Top.
There we go. Low income, we are 56.82%, and foster youth, 0.01%. Our ethnic breakdown, we are predominantly Hispanic and Latino, with 59.5% identifying as such, and then 24% as white, and about 9% as Native American, making up the top 3 ethnic groups in the district. For our funding overview, our LCFF funds, so that's the local control funding formula. Many of you probably know that the state awards grants at basically 3 tiers, the first being a base level grant, and then our supplemental and concentration grant based on enrollment in subgroups that need more support and more services. So our LCFF funds are just a little over $3 million, $3,085,019. Other state funds come in at $605,000. Federal funds at $497,000 for a total of $4.187 million. How that's allocated currently is this bottom figure right here. So right now, most of it's obviously in the personnel category, with $3.97 million dedicated to personnel and $214,000 in non-personnel funds. Moving on to our goals. So district goal that every student receives a high quality education leading to academic achievement and physical fitness, successfully preparing them for college and career readiness. I'll break these down by content area first. So we'll start with English language arts. Our target up there you can see is that we want growth to 50% or above that are meeting or exceeding the standards as measured on the state assessment. Our LCAP baseline in 2019-2020 year over here was 39.45%, and our current data in 2020 to 2021 was 34.61%, as having met or exceeded, with 12% having nearly met the standards. I should note that 25% of the state students did not take the SBAC last year, so this data will not show up on our dashboard indicators, although we are reporting it here today. Our actions that we are going to take to improve this: employ instructional coaches to support small group instruction, our district early literacy TOSA, summer school, intervention programs such as Lexia, IXL, Paper.co, and instructional aids, both bilingual and Title VI. Moving to the math content area, again, our district goal is growth to, right here, growth to 50% that are above or meeting the statewide measures. And our baseline, we started in 2019-2020 at 23.96%. Our current data is 15.64% meeting or exceeding, so that's earning a 3 or 4 on the state test, and 24.54 that have nearly met with a score of 2 on the state test. Our actions to improve: again, we will have an instructional coach focus with small group and staff support, alignment and pacing with instructional materials and resources at the secondary, summer school, and intervention materials, Equip, IXL, ALEX, and Zern. And then finally, for our content areas, moving on to science, again, the district goal, the target is growth to 50% that are meeting or above meeting the standards on the state test. Our baseline data in 2018 and 19, and this is because the test wasn't administered in 2019-20, we have 22.54% who are meeting or exceeding, and our current data in that middle column is 18.74% who are meeting or exceeding, and 57.56% who are nearly meeting those standards. Our actions are, again, instructional coach support on pacing, on common assessments and resources for middle school, and we are also beginning a collaborative discussion with SDCOE and science education. Moving on to another district goal. This one concerns graduation rates. Excuse me. So our goal for graduation, we'll start with college and career indicators. So our goal for college and career indicators, we want 50% of students who are completing A to G requirements, as well as 50% who have completed a CTE pathway. So our students start their 9th grade year with a 4-year plan to complete their A to G requirements, but we also offer the rigor of CTE pathways, which mirrors that of A to G, and which provides the opportunity for students to pursue a passion that they have around career. And these numbers are really small, so I apologize there. But out of a cohort of just over 100 students, we have 37% who have realized A to G completion at the high school as of last year's graduation, and 65 students, which is 20% of the cohort who are CTE, who are CTE compliant. Now moving on to graduation, our district goal is to have 96% or greater of graduation rate at our high schools. I should say that Valley Center High School itself, obviously it's our largest school, that is currently at 95%, but looking at the district as a whole, we are at 86% in this top right. And again, most of these data have breakdowns by different subgroups, so I'll let you peruse those on your own. You have the printouts there. So despite our graduation rate not really meeting our goal of 96% right now, except for really close at Valley Center High School, it is worth pointing out that we are above the state average. So we are beating the state average by about 2% as of last year's metrics. Finally, looking at the district goal of every student being actively engaged in learning, feeling safe at school, and demonstrating good citizenship, we want our suspension rate, our goal is less than 4% of the district, and the expulsion rate to be less than 0.2%. This is the current data as of this morning. We've had 12 in-school suspensions and 170 out-of-school suspensions. The state counts both of those in the total when calculating a suspension rate. So that comes out to about 4.7%. And we've had 0 expulsions this year, so obviously 0% in that regard. We've got a lot of actions planned to serve this area because it is a focus. Obviously, we want students in school, not at home. We want teachers to feel safe and supported. So we are employing full-time counselors who work with students suffering from various difficulties and traumas with a focus on anxiety, which can obviously lead to behavior and attendance concerns. Those full-time counselors will also be delivering classroom lessons and group lessons in bullying, self-regulation, empathy, self-esteem, and decision-making. And we are trying to connect those counselors to families with various agencies to support shelter, clothing, and more. Again, you'll see when we talked about the budget, personnel was a large part of it, so most of the actions here are personnel movements. We've also hired social workers for the district to engage in family outreach to combat attendance concerns. They also work directly with students on campus, leading small groups and providing counseling services. They've developed a comprehensive resource list for parents and staff and strengthened the wraparound support for our families with counselors and psychologists. School psychologists have been another area where the district's made hires to create, support, and monitor individual behavior plans, accommodation plans, and to assist site administration in addressing attendance, learning, and behavior. Finally, I will add that we are working more and more to try to make data a part of our decision-making. So this is looking at it's basically a heat map that looks at every behavior event in the district this year, broken down by day of the week. So if you kind of look across the little x-axis there, sorry, the mouse isn't really working. You have your days of the week, and then you have the time of the day down the y-axis, and the darker areas shaded represent more behavior events. So this will lead the site leaders to be able to look at certain days of the week, certain times of the day, and realize where they need to focus campus supervision, counseling, programming at their sites.
Right, yeah, I got that.
And I will pass it over to John Peterson from Business Services to discuss expenditures.
I'll just add one thing, Mr. Peterson, before you start, and Derek, thank you for your presentation. I see the principals looking over there nodding their heads. This is a new graph that Derek showed me this morning that I was so impressed with. I said, put it in the slideshow, because if we can really pinpoint when different activities are occurring, it'll be better able to have people in the right spots to try to stop some of that. So principals, that will be coming out to you soon, and Derek, great job on working on that graph.
Thank you. Thank you. That was excellent.
Thank you. I'll wrap up the last 3 or 4 slides on our LCAP supplement presentation.
First time seeing anything like that.
As you just heard in the previous slides, our LCAP is divided into 3 broad goals with specific action steps to carry out those goals. And the next 3 slides show the expenditures to date in carrying out the listed actions, along with the totals we anticipate to have spent by the end of this school year. Our first goal on this slide, goal number 1, ensuring that every student is engaged in learning, you'll see that our expenditures largely relate to counseling, psychologists, and other support staff for students. We're on track to carry out the actions identified in the LCAP, having expended about $750,000 to date of the $1.6 million we're budgeting to use by the end of the year. So we're on track, about halfway done. Our second goal related to receiving high-quality instruction. There were 9 action steps in the adopted LCAP, and we are making ongoing expenditures in those areas. We've expended about $1.2 million on those actions and have budgeted making almost $2.5 million in expenditures by the end of the year. Our third broad goal relates to information and decision-making, and we've expended about $57,000, and we're on track to expend about $90,000 by the end of the fiscal year. The budget overview will give you a glimpse of how the expenditures identified in the LCAP fit into the picture of our overall budget. We have total projected revenues of about $54.6 million for the year and about $56.7 million in total expenditures, of which $4.2 million are the LCAP expenditures we just shared with you in this presentation. About half of those LCAP dollars have been identified as being directed to high-need students. So that's a snapshot of our progress this year. Our ongoing commitment is to continue the work by monitoring the mental health of our students through check-ins and follow-ups with counselors, social workers, and staff. We will measure the academic and social emotional growth in our students through the use of multiple assessments. And we remain committed to professional development that expands our toolbox to support each student's learning and success.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Thank you, Derek. I know it's difficult when Dr. Roberts is not here, but anybody have any questions? She's not here to answer those, but I have a question.
It was during Derek's part that he was talking where it goes through each, the statistics for each section, so the English, the math, and science, the percentages of where we're at, like the current data of 15.64 or 18.74, obviously that seems low to me, but then it jumps down 57% nearly met standards. So are those goals like supposed to be met by the end of the year and we're halfway through, or do we want the highest number? Is it realistic to have the highest number all the way through the school year? Does that make sense? Or?
Sure. So in the given course of a year, yes, students won't start. Most of them won't start at a place of meeting or exceeding the standards. They'll start at a more foundational understanding of whatever content area. So they'll progress throughout that. However, the data that I'm sharing was at a snapshot after the end of the year. The test from 2020, 2021.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, meeting or exceeding would be, it's four bands. Meeting or exceeding would be a 3 or 4, and then nearly met would be a 2.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And again, I do want to just really emphasize that there's a lot of noise in the data because 25% didn't take, the SBAC at all. So it really throws off when you look at these rates, like percentages, it really throws that off quite a bit. But,
Sure.
But I don't want to also say that we're complacent with those numbers because like you, I think everyone in the district isn't happy with 20%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been very difficult the last 2 years, online learning and all the rest of it, but hopefully we can get back on track. Yeah.
We will have data this year though, right? We should have data.
We should have data for this year.
More comparable. Am I right also, kind of piggybacking off of what Paul was sharing, we're compared to the state though, we're pretty much on target.
Right about the same as the state.
Very
Graduation
similar?
rate?
No, I meant in the SBAC
Expulsion
data.
and all that.
The results. Are we kind of at a similar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that's what he said, right?
that's what I understood, yes.
So it's comparable?
Yes,
to-
that's what I understood it to say, yes. Comparable to the state.
Okay. No worries, I just wanted to make sure that I think I heard you say that the data or our results are comparable with state results as well?
We respond at graduation rate levels right now.
I see.
For graduation, we're about 1.9, so it's just about 2% higher than the state average.
Okay.
But we haven't broken it down by the individual content areas for
Okay,
SBAC.
right, okay, and have we also broken down by subgroups?
Yes, and that should be in those slides. You should have it broken down by
Okay, by all the individual different subjects?
Right.
Okay, great, all righty. And then I had a question also for John. Question was, do you have, what the support staff for discipline and attendance, what that looks like?
You're probably referring to the one action related to a classified position at the middle school to support in that. Yeah.
Okay, great, all right, thank you.
And haven't we just added another classified position to the high school in the same area?
Yes.
Even though it may not be under LCFF, but it's extra
Yes.
funding for another security guard.
Okay, and that's different than campus security, right?
Yeah, this is different than campus security.
Oh, it is the same?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. With that, we move on to item 8B, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, ELOP, which we read about. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Also move.
There's a motion to approve that, and is there a second? And a second. Okay, any discussion? All right, therefore, I'll call the vote. Member Benjamin?
Aye.
Member Heredia?
Aye.
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
And Member Adams votes aye. On the Human Resources Division, we have the proposed new job description of Help Desk Technician 2. Yeah, so do you have a motion to approve that one?
I'll So moved.
You have a motion, and
I'll
is there
second.
any discussion? Question? Okay, then, call for the vote. Member Benjamin?
Aye.
Member Heredia?
Aye.
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
Member Adams votes aye. And then finally, under the Human Resources, a proposed new job description to clarify everything, the Systems Administrator for that. Do we have a motion to approve that one?
So moved.
And we have a motion, and is there a second?
All second.
And a motion and a second. Are there discussion on it? Okay, seeing none, we'll move for the vote. Member Benjamin?
Aye.
Member Heredia?
Aye.
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
Member Adams votes aye. Okay. For advanced planning, our next regular meeting is on March 10th, 2022, here at the Media Center. And there's a one-day bonus workshop on Thursday, March 31st. Okay. Is there a motion for an adjournment?
Also moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Member Benjamin?
Aye.
Member Heredia?
Aye.
Member Polito?
Aye.
Member Stroh?
Aye.
Member Adams votes aye. This meeting is adjourned.